It was we the people, not we the male citizens, nor yet we the male citizens, but we the whole people who formed the Union. And we formed it not to give the blessings of liberty, but to secure them, not to the half of ourselves and the half of our posterity, but to the whole people, women as well as men. Susan B. Anthony.
The chalice will now be lit by Pat. If you have your own chalice, please light it now too, and let us know that you've done so by typing in the chat at the bottom of your screen or on the side of your screen. This morning's chalice lighting words are by Alice Paul. Most reforms, most problems are complicated, but to me, there is nothing complicated about ordinary equality.
From the early women's suffrage movement. It has a very simple chorus. I hope you will join in. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Dear, dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Women are wanting the vote. Women have husbands, they are protected. Women have sons by whom they're directed. Women have fathers, they're not neglected. Why are they wanting to vote? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Dear, dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Women are wanting the vote. Women have homes, there they should labor. Women have children whom they should favor. Women have time to learn of each neighbor. Why are they wanting to vote? Join us. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Dear, dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Women are wanting the vote. Women can dress, they love society. Women have cash with all its variety. Women can pray with sweetest piety. Why are they wanting to vote? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Dear, dear, what can the matter be? Oh dear, what can the matter be? Women are wanting the vote. Women have reared all the sons of the brave. Women have shared in the burdens they gave. Women have labored your country to save. That's why we're wanting to vote.
Much of what we're about to read to you today is taken from the liner notes written by Irwin Silber from a 1958 Folkways record, Songs of the Suffragettes. Can you see that? We have adapted and excerpted these notes.
The right of the citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied nor abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. With those few simple words, American women gain the right to vote. Today, when we are still fighting for the right of everyone to vote and to have our votes counted, we would do well to remember how the issue of women's suffrage racked this nation from coast to coast. Riots, demonstrations, outraged sermons, indignant editorials and frenzied emotional outbursts from all sides. Sound familiar? Highlight the history of the long uphill fight for women's electoral rights, which was capped by triumph with the adoption of the 19th Amendment on August 26, 1920. The struggle for women's suffrage in America is actually older than our country. The first recorded demand for votes for women was made by Margaret Brent in Maryland in 1647. For the next 200 years, however, women's suffrage remained a minor issue as America fought the battle for national independence and later, the Civil War.
The next important step forward came with the emergence of the great anti-slavery agitation of the 1830s. The natural ideological affinity of the two causes was heightened by the active and leading role played by many women in the abolitionist movement. Outstanding male figures in the battle against slavery, like William Lloyd Garrison and Frederick Douglass, were also ardent champions of women's rights. Another famous abolitionist and suffragist was Sojourner Truth. As you may know, Sojourner Truth was born into slavery in Ulster County. She escaped in 1826, even though she knew that New York was set to abolish slavery in 1827. She traveled around the country giving speeches and singing songs about abolition and women's rights. Here is one of the songs attributed to her. I am pleading for my people to have their rights restored, for they have long been toiling and yet have no reward. They are forced the crops to culture, but not for them they yield. Although but late and early, they labor in the field. While I bear upon my body the scars of many a gash, I'm pleading for my people who groan beneath the lash. I am pleading for the mothers who gaze in wild despair upon the hated auction block and see their children there. But while your kindest sympathies to foreign lands do roam, I'd ask you to remember your own oppressed at home. I plead with you to sympathize with sighs and groans and scars, and note how base the tyranny beneath the stripes and stars.
The next song is about a remarkable woman. With the release of the new movie, Harriet, people all over the world are becoming more aware of the amazing courage of a woman named Harriet Tubman. She was a suffragist as well as a well-known abolitionist. She actually freed over 300 men, women, and children from the Deep South and was never caught. This is a song written in 1977 by Walter Robinson. It is called simply Harriet Tubman. Feel free to join us on the chorus. One night I dreamed I was in slavery. About 1850 was the time. Sorrow was the only sign. Nothing around to ease my mind. Out of the night appeared a woman leading a distant pilgrim band. First mate she cried, pointing her hand, They grew on board for this young woman, saying, come on up, I got a lifeline. Come on up to this train of mine. Come on up, I got a lifeline. Come on up to this train of mine. She said her name was Harriet Tubman, and she drove for the Underground Railroad. Hundreds of miles we travel on foot, gathering souls from town to town, seeking every lost and found, setting us free who once were bound. Somehow my heart was growing weaker. I fell by the wayside, shifting sands. Firmly did this woman stand. She lifted me up, she lifted me up, she lifted me up, and she took my hand. Everybody, come on up, I got a lifeline. Come on up to this train of mine. Come on up, I got a lifeline. Come on up to this train of mine. She said her name's Harriet Tubman, and she drove for the Underground Railroad. Who are these children dressed in red? Must be the ones that Moses led. Now tell me, who are these children dressed in red? Must be the ones that Moses led. She said her name was Harriet Tubman, and she drove for the Underground Railroad. Railroad. Railroad.
In 1840, Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton were among the American delegates to the first World Anti-Slavery Convention in London. The presence of these women caused an uproar in the assembly, and the convention refused to seat them as delegates. Undaunted, the entire American delegation refused to take part and took seats in the gallery for the remainder of the proceedings. Stirred and agitated by their experiences in London, Mott and Stanton resolved that upon returning home, they would initiate the campaign for women's rights on a wider scale than ever before. In 1848, they called the first American Women's Rights Convention in Seneca Falls, New York. By 1852, women's rights groups in many parts of the country were holding conventions.
Despite this, the monumental struggle against slavery eclipsed the women's rights movement until after the Civil War. Although there were dissenters, most of the suffragists were abolitionists themselves and understood the necessity of winning the anti-slavery battle first. It is significant, however, that the first suffrage songs of which we have any record do not appear until after 1865. This next song, for example, was written in 1882. It points out quite logically that if women could be forced to pay taxes and obey laws, they were certainly entitled to have some say in electing the public officials who decided to impose those taxes and pass those laws.
To tax one who's not represented is tyranny, tell if you can. Why woman should not have the ballot, she's taxed just the same as a man. King George, you remember, denied us the ballot, but sent us the tea. And we, without asking a question, just tumbled it into the sea. Then to justice let's ever be true, to each citizen render his due. Equal rights and protections forever, to all neath the red, white, and blue. That one man shall not rule another, unless by that other's consent is the principle deep underlying the framework of this government. So as woman is punished for breaking the laws which she cannot gainsay, let us give her a voice in the making, or ask her no more to obey. Then to justice let's ever be true, to each citizen render his due, equal rights and protections forever, to all neath the red, white, and blue.
That song was called The Taxation Tyranny.
Thank you, Shar. Votes for women became one of the major national issues of the 1900 to 1920 period. This is the era of women's parades, of the torchlight demonstrations, of the suffragists chaining themselves to lampposts. Suffragists who, in many cases rightly, associated spousal abuse with alcohol abuse, believed that to free women from abusive husbands, all that was needed was to prohibit the manufacture and sale of alcoholic beverages. Thus, this song lauds women for going to the polls to put down the liquor traffic.
This is called Going to the Polls. If the men should see the women going to the polls to put down the liquor traffic, need it vex their souls. If we're angels as they tell us, can we once suppose that all the men would frown on us when going to the polls? We love our boys, our household joys, we love our girls as well. The law of love is from above, against that we ne'er rebel. No discharge have Christian women from the war with sin. At the polls with Gog and Magog must the fight begin. Since we Bible marching orders needed fright our souls, though all the men should frown on us when going to the polls. We love our boys, our household joys, we love our girls as well. The law of love is from above, against that we ne'er rebel.
Now I'd like to invite Richard Mattocks, our token male, to join me for this next song. This was one of the most popular of the suffrage songs. It appears in a number of suffrage song collections and apparently was widely sung at rallies. It's called Keep Woman in Her Sphere. Give me a moment. I have a neighbor, one of those not very hard to find, who knows it all without debate and never change their mind. I asked him, what a woman's cause? He said in tones severe,
my mind on that is all made up. Keep woman in her sphere.
I saw, excuse me. Sorry. This song just chokes me up so much. I saw a man in tattered garb, forth from the grog shop come. He squandered all his cash on drink and starved his wife at home. I asked him, should not women vote? He answered with a sneer,
I taught my wife to know her place. Keep woman in her sphere.
I met an earnest, thoughtful man not many days ago, who pondered deep all human law, the honest truth to know. I asked him, what of woman's cause? The answer came sincere.
You know, her rights are just the same as mine. Let woman choose her sphere.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. Always good to have a token male in the house. Okay. On June 4th, 1919, Congress passed the Women's Suffrage Amendment and sent it to the states for ratification. The amendment became a part of the Constitution on August 26, 1920, and the vision of those first suffragists 72 years earlier, who gathered together in Seneca Falls in 1848, at last was a reality. This song is called Give the Ballot to the Mothers. Bring the good old bugle boys, we'll sing another song. Sing it with a spirit that can start the cause along. Sing it as we want to sing it, cheerily and strong. Giving the ballot to the mothers. Hurrah, hurrah, we bring the jubilee. Hurrah, hurrah, the homes they shall be free. So we'll sing the chorus from the mountains to the sea, giving the ballot to the mothers. Bring the dear old band, boys, and fling it to the wind. Mother, wife, and daughter, let it shelter and defend. Equal rights, our motto is we're loyal to the end. Giving the ballot to the mothers. Everybody, hurrah, hurrah, we bring the jubilee. Hurrah, hurrah, homes shall be free. So we'll sing the chorus from the mountains to the sea, giving the ballot to the mothers. Hurrah, hurrah, we bring the jubilee. Hurrah, hurrah, homes they shall be free. So we'll sing the chorus from the mountains to the sea, giving the ballot to the mothers. Giving the ballot to the mothers. I am holding up the banner that Alice Paul, a Jersey girl, by the way, held up on the day of victory, August 26, 1920. Hope everybody can see that. And I actually purchased this replica of the actual of the suffrage flag at Seneca Falls, the historic landmark, which I first visited in 1998, and that was the 150th anniversary of the first historic Women's Rights Convention on July 19th and July 20th. And after I got home, I wrote this song. It's called the Women's Suffrage Song. Basically, I wrote it because I never knew the story and I wanted to share the story. I never learned the story and it really kind of upset me a little bit. And I said, well, let's tell the story. And that's kind of what we're here doing today. And I am very proud of our great suffrage foremothers. And so in their honor, I sing the Women's Suffrage Song. Lucretia Mott sailed the sea to speak out against slavery. but a rule of silence shut her down. Your voice cannot be allowed, said the all-male convention crowd. This is a public place, and a woman can't utter a sound. Their hypocrisy, so absurd as they wrap themselves in freedom's words, while holding the chains of male domination. With Elizabeth Stanton at her side, Lucretia vowed to turn the tide, and together they planted the seeds of a revolution. Through chilly winds and the darkest nights, they held on like geese in flight for their sister's sake, preparing to fight. In a little town near Seneca Falls, in rural upstate New York, Elizabeth and Lucretia called up a meeting. 5 women in a circle, having tea, yearning for equality. A women's rights convention they decided they would be needing. 1848, in the heat of July, women and girls came from far and wide, daring to confront their state of subjugation. Elizabeth Stanton had taken the floor. For the right to vote, she did implore, and the words she spoke would echo for generations. And through chilly winds and the darkest nights, they held on like geese in flight for their sister's sake, getting ready to fight. Brave leaders emerged to advance the cause. Truth, gauge, Alice Paul, hungering in prison to amend the Constitution. After 72 years of struggle and pain, with the 19th Amendment we overcame. In August 1920 we marched in jubilation. All these years later, we've made many gains, but the patriarchy still remains in a constant state of war with all creation. Rising from the seeds our foremothers sowed, millions of women are coming to know that the fate of Mother Earth depends on our mobilization. Through chilly winds and the darkest nights, we'll hold on like geese in flight for our sake. But we gotta fight. And through chilly winds and the darkest nights, we'll hold on like geese in flight for Mother Earth. We gotta fight. We gotta fight. We gotta fight. We gotta fight.
Each week we make an offering from the bounty that we are blessed to enjoy. We
close our presentation with these words by Carrie Catt. The vote is the emblem of your equality, women of America, the guarantee of your liberty. That vote of yours has cost millions of dollars and the lives of thousands of women. Women have suffered agony of soul which you can never comprehend, that you and your daughters might inherit political freedom. The vote has been costly. Prize it. The vote is a power, a weapon of offense and defense, a prayer. Use it intelligently, conscientiously, prayerfully. Progress is calling to you to make no pause. Act.
Our closing song is to a familiar tune. I hope you'll sing along with us. As I say, it's a familiar tune, but just as all the suffragists wrote their songs to familiar tunes, Sharleen and I wrote new verses to a familiar tune, This Land Is Your Land. I'm going to sing the first verse that I wrote. Sharleen will sing the second verse that she wrote. I will sing a third verse that was written by a friend of ours, Carol Ann Salabello. And then Char will end with one of Woody Guthrie's verses. So please join in. I believe the words will be put on the screen. Here they come. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. Women are leaders, women are voters, we serve in Congress and on the SCOTUS. Someday a woman will be our POTUS. This land was made for you and me.
This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. Rise up, women, it's time to heal. Mother Earth needs a new Green Deal. Mothers, daughters, sisters and brothers too. This land was made for me and you.
This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. Oh, Lady Freedom, your torch is lifted to greet the homeless and guide the gifted in these dark hours. Help us to see this land was made for you and me.
This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. Nobody living can ever stop me as I go walking that freedom highway. Nobody living can make me turn back. This land was made for you and me. Everybody join us. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. Oh, this land was made for you and me. This land was made for you and me.
Thank you so much to our guest